liked him?
Gang hang. It has been brought to my attention. We were talking about Joe Patrick got a new PlayStation. Congratulations to him. I'm jealous. I need one. It has been brought to my attention that they made 20 episodes of that goddamn Powers adaptation for the PlayStation Network.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, if you watched, when they sat down, I watched the first 2 episodes, I think. But when they sat down and they screened what they had done for the first 4 episodes, they were like, let's do 16 more of these. We are killing it. We're killing it, guys.
It's the I think about like the whiteboard problem.
Yeah.
Of like, how did this get past the whiteboard? And I finished watching Echo last night, and it was like, I don't know how they saw that character from an amazing 5-issue story that David Mack wrote, and then they were like, I know what to do.
Yeah.
It's about a roller rink. It's about I don't know, indiscriminate powers that echo through time. It is a mess of a show. I know it did well for them. I'm glad, because they need to support making more stuff that isn't for everybody. But
yes.
My God, what? It was like we can watch something we want to. Oh my God! Ugh.
Okay, look, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, Brian. It is a mess of a show, 100%. I did enjoy Echo, and I thought the performances were good enough to keep me watching and carry me through it. But the power bullshit echoing through time, good Lord. Come on. The performances are good, but you can see all of most of those actors on better TV shows. Oh, without a doubt. Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of, it's like, why? I'll just watch Reservation Dogs. I could just watch all these other
agree.
There's just you get all these people together, and that final episode, I was like, I don't know why they are here. What is the plot of this story?
Yeah.
What is the point? There's no point to it. There's no.
I don't totally. I don't
there's
disagree.
No meat on the bone.
And,
and I wish that there was. At the beginning, you get the setup, you get the whole recap, and then she goes back to her town, and it's that weird thing of it's really far from New York, but she took a motorcycle, so it can't be that far.
Yeah,
with Oklahoma, right?
She took a motorcycle with a gunshot wound, mind you.
with a gunshot wound and no luggage.
Yeah.
She just hops on a motorcycle and rides indiscriminately. Yeah, it's in Oklahoma, but there's a Fisk building in Oklahoma. It's why?
Yeah.
Well, now hold on. It was 5 months later. It says it was 5 months later, so it wasn't she wasn't rolling with that gunshot wound all the way from New York.
Yeah, dude. She shows up with the gunshot wound. She's
I understand
bleeding.
she has a gunshot wound, but it says after the Kingpin shooting, it says 5 months later.
Well, sure.
So something happened to her in the interim.
Yeah, she was not necessarily in New York at the wherever she stopped over in that gas
she
station.
was on the run, and maybe she got ambushed by Fisk goons while she was on the run.
Sure.
But she did come from New York at some point, but it was a road trip.
I
do agree. She had no clothes. She had no luggage. She was just, for 5 months. She wore the same outfit. It's
if it was 2 weeks, it would still be she would have, I don't know, bled out by now. This is bad, but it's just there was so much where was the person in the room saying, but why? Why are we doing this? We've decided this is the character, and she is good. She's a fine Echo. Who even knows who Echo is?
Right.
Fine. She's a vacant. She's the shape of a female presenting person.
Yeah.
Right. She could be anything we want, and they. I don't think that they sold out any of the Hawkeye stuff at all. She's a vessel for whatever you want, and they just they didn't have a story to tell. And that's the problem with these shows. It's what do you
I don't disagree at all.
Did not have a story. They had a budget, and they have good actors, and they do nothing with it. And I just don't know what, other than it's hard not to be me, the Marvel cinematic complainer of, why are you doing this? What is the point other than content?
I don't disagree.
Content.
Other than, what the point was, and at the end of the day, the point was, we need to get her into a superhero costume and make her a superhero. Because like really, there was a script where sure, she goes back to Oklahoma after the shooting to hide out or whatever, plans her revenge, comes back to New York and launches a full-on, war on Wilson Fisk in New York, and maybe we'll incorporate, Daredevil again at that point or something. I don't know. And they were like, well, wait a minute. She is a Native American. Let's really dig down into that and give her Native American powers and stick her on the reservation for the entire time and focus on, like, fight that urge. That almost makes it stereotypical. Just let her be a badass,
That's a good story to tell, but they don't tell it.
No, like, they didn't tell that part either. That's the thing.
And they don't, if you line these things up next to each other, they do not do anything. They just waste time. And I wish I would like to watch. I don't want to waste hours of my life watching these TV shows that are like, what are we doing? But like you see them and they go through like the final episode. How many scenes does she walk into a run holding a gun in Wilson Fisk's face? Like every episode, there's no like no one plotted out the beats of like, what is the story we're doing? Like, what are we? Why is she here? Why, like, what is the essence of this? What's your hypothesis? Like, what are you trying to do? Where are you trying to move her to place? And if it's just to put her in a costume, do the next big movie and she shows up in the costume, and most of the people who are not going to watch the TV show are going to be like, oh, that's cool. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like if you're just trying to get her in a costume, don't waste my time.
And
I think it's cheaper. Think of how
way cheaper.
Money we would not spend.
It's way cheaper.
We spend so much time. We spent more time with Biscuit. This is his name, Biscuit. Yeah. Trying to fix the truck than we did with the reason of why she's doing anything. We don't know her motivations for anything.
You're not wrong.
We don't know.
You're not wrong at all.
And it's a TV show. Like, it should have a plot to it, and these things just don't. And like Secret Invasion did not have a point to it.
Oh God, it had no point.
It had like that. There was so much potential in the first episode, and you get to the end, and it's Samuel L. Jackson and Olivia Williams, who's one of the greatest actors of the current age, just staring at each other.
Yeah,
like, what are we doing?
Olivia Colman.
Excuse me, Olivia Colman. And it costs millions of dollars.
Well, and don't forget, they dug themselves into they pushed themselves into such a corner with like, oh, the bad guy isn't bad enough. We better amp them up so they're like more powerful than anything that's ever happened in the Marvel universe. And like, oh, but the show sucked. So I guess we'll never talk about it again.
Let's just never talk about it again.
But now what's her name's out there with that power.
Right.
So, they'll do, like, she'll show up somewhere.
I guess. But like, am I supposed to feel something when she does other than being like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Right.
I remember I didn't like that show. No, okay. Say what you will about the introduction of Echo, the character in the comics. I do think that storyline of blind Matt Murdock meets deaf Echo, and they're both badasses, and they fight, right? But in fighting, they realize, like, oh my God, we're like two sides of a coin, where we both have these abilities based on this thing, and it ends up like this dance almost that they're doing, and they fall in love. Like, that's a great story.
Yeah, they dance in the playground on the seesaw.
No.
Like in Daredevil the movie.
Well, it's because David Mack knows how to write an emotional story.
Yes.
Like I went through to look as I'm suffering through the episode. I pulled up the Marvel app and I go and I find the first issue, and it's like, Maya it says that she plays the piano like forcefully because she likes to feel the echo of the musical echo, and it's like, that's it. She just wants to feel.
Yes.
She wants to like live. And it's not about her ancestors. It's about it's about her life and her father. And like, this is this small world she is, and she's trying to make it bigger, and she's talented and she could do all these things. It's like, but she's broken. And it's like, look, Matt has the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, like, Echo in the comics is a celebrated concert pianist.
Yes.
Like, that's something that I don't think anyone has ever touched on since that first story, is that, like, she is famous. She is a famous musician.
Well,
like, playing these piano concerts.
I don't think she was like a famous musician. It was more like she was being strut out by Wilson Fisk to perform in front of like certain rich people and shit like that. I don't think she was like selling out Carnegie Hall. It was
I think that they were like advertised shows because it was like
okay. So
anyway,
I literally just read this for the segment we're going to do.
Like so did I, dude. But anyway, it's all right. That's not the point. But like I agree with Brian is that like she's trying to fill her life full of these experiences,
right?
And that none of that is present in the show.
No, that's what made the character interesting. And like, I'm not saying I don't want Native American characters. I think it's awesome. She has a Native American background. You can definitely touch on that, but that's not everything the character is. And when you do that, I think it's reductive. I think it's really reductive.
Well, they do all of it, right? And there's like I don't know if you guys haven't seen the final scene, but like, or one of the final scenes, but there's a big fight and it kind of culminates to her maternal bloodline.
Right.
Those people, they manifest powers as well. And it's like super strength and punching and like, I think some healing,
shooting.
Like, it's
so like a bull, kind of like a bullseye-esque.
A little bit of healing in there. Yeah.
Super marksmanship.
Yeah, like it's so vague and like it's you go through.
It's not at all defined, really.
No, and they go. I mean, the show starts with this like really vivid and beautiful, thing. It actually kind of reminded me of the. It gave me bad flashbacks to Black Panther 2 of like the the Atlanteans, but because they're like in the cave and they're like blue tinged, but
I thought they were squirrels at first. I was like, no,
right? Because they got
don't do this.
Yeah, they've got the face.
Yeah,
it looks like the face.
They got the chin.
The tattoos, but I know I said this. I was like, oh my god, are they squirrels? So it was like all that. Like they build up all this history and all this stuff, and then at the end, it's like their hands get glowy and they can like punch.
Yeah,
like. What is that? Like that's not a thing. And then like they, she faces off against Fisk, and he's like really nice about everything. Like you don't get the feeling that he's gonna like really double cross her until like if she appeased him a little bit, he'd be like, cool, we're cool. Much like the guy they made president.
He loves her. Like he loves her like a daughter, no question. Like so much so to ridiculous effect. I would argue.
Well, and he's mad at her because she's mad at him. Right? Mm-hmm. He's not mad at her, and she can get back into his good graces in a second by being like, by basically doing that thing where you put your hand, the gun's in your hand, and your fingers on the trigger, and you put your hands up, and you're like, yeah, I know, man, we're cool. And he'd be like, great. Back to work. Like he would move on, but she keeps pushing, which is fine. But like that scene happens like 3 times.
Yeah.
On top of the flashback to when it happened in Hawkeye. Yeah. Like we've already done this. We've done this 3 or 4 times. And like get that whiteboard out at Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, and show me every episode, every beat. It's like, don't you see that's happening over and over again? Like this is not. But I just feel like they're like, well, we're out of time. We announced the show. We got to put it out.
Like, I totally agree.
Come out, guys. It's got to come out.
Not to keep harping on the powers, but when you have the creator of the show coming out saying, "Well, we changed her powers because we thought that the abilities she had in the comics were kind of lame, so we wanted to give her, we gave her these new powers." Like, okay, great. What are they? If you had to sum them up real quick. Give me in a sentence.
Generic powers that they didn't even bother to explain.
Right. Like, okay, that's so much cooler than what she was doing. She's essentially the Taskmaster in the comics, which is badass.
When she catches the billy clubs, right? And he Matt throws them and they bounce and she catches them and throws them back and he's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Like, I thought this was going to be easy. He's not afraid, but he's like,
right.
That's not good. And she pushes him on it, like she's bloodthirsty, and it's a really interesting dynamic. And then you meet them when they're out of their costumes, and he doesn't know the difference yet, and he's like bewitched by her because you guys have read all he's bewitched by every woman he's ever met that he's attracted to. Like he just can't control himself. He's got the Kavorka. He's just insane. But,
right. He wants to marry his mom. He can't help it. It's eatable,
she's interesting, and if they want to change it, that's fine. But like, you get to the end, and it's like, but at what cost? Like, what did we? Other than you spent millions and millions of dollars for her to and they must have had so much footage of her on a motorcycle, because in that last episode, they like wrap everything up, and then she drives around a lot, and then she goes back for like the party, and they're like, "Hey, what's going on?" She's like, "Hey, everybody." It's like, why did you have 15 minutes to fill of her on a motorcycle? Like, this show.
And the episodes weren't that long to begin with. They were only 30 to 40 minutes.
No, it's
all right. Enough complaining about Echo. I do though want to ask, what the hell was with that eye patch Kingpin was wearing? Because it like made noise like it was electronic.
I don't know.
Like it was some sort of device.
Okay, and here's the other thing. You walk right up.
His eye was fine.
His eye was fine. If you walk right up and I stick a gun in your face, like she points it at her eye and pulls the trigger, right? And he wakes up and she's like, "Nah, she just kind of shot me like right here. You know, like sort of just to the right of my eyeball." What kind of assassin aims there? You know, like she's a badass.
I mean,
she's got magic Native American shooting abilities along with her healing powers and punch power. You know, like how did she miss? Like, you're standing in front of, and that dude's head is bigger than a watermelon. How did you miss? You know,
I'm willing to say
she didn't have her powers then.
Well, but it's also it's a common, like, fine, like it's a genre show. Sure, I've got no problem with that. But the way that it kept like going back and forth, it's like he totally looks fine. Like he looks fine.
Yeah,
you're fine. Like
when he took off that eye patch in his eye, like I thought at a minimum he'd be missing an eye,
something.
Right.
But his eye is still in there.
Yeah. Like, look, I have pinched zits that left worse marks than that gunshot wound. You know?
It's bullet-based it's conjunctivitis from a bullet is basically what it looks like. It's like red and puffy. But that technology, that they only did in that one scene where it's like,
the sign language
put in the lens. Thing? Yeah. Like it's like they didn't, when they don't do it again, it's like, we've already done this. Like, guys, was it? I'm sure it was too expensive to do again, but it's like it was cool. Like that's such an really interesting thing, and he's gonna make $1 billion. Fisk is gonna make $1 billion.
I did like that. That they kind of like that kind of shit that would not have happened in the Netflix version. I don't think.
No,
because things were too
grounded.
You know, ground level,
right?
In all of the shows, really, I kind of liked that they MCU'd it up a little bit, where it's like, Fisk has developed like this crazy super technology.
Well, sure. I mean,
I thought that was fun.
Yeah, guys like Stiltman and Rocket Racer should be billionaires, but instead they're trying to knock off banks.
Right, yeah. It's like, like this janitor developed a way to take his pressurized cleaning spray bottle apparatus and used it to become a high-rise burglar called the Prowler.
Sure.
And it's like, why didn't you sell that technology to somebody?
Well, yeah. Why didn't Peter Parker call 3M and be like, "Hey, I got to end all my Parker luck. I've made this spider webbing stuff. You know, I'm sure you can do something with it."
He did. He did try to do that, and 3M rejected it because it dissolves in an hour.
Oh yeah, because what use could you possibly do with that?
Or like who could possibly use an adhesive that's super strong and unbreakable, but then wears off when you're done?
Certainly not the police. I mean, like, what would the police do with something when they could just shoot you?
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So I did like they did pay lip service to it in the comics, but like true to the Parker luck, like 3M was like, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks."
Yeah.
But that's a ridiculous business decision. They would have made billions.
Well, sure. Of course. All right, other stuff
to talk about. Isn't Peter Parker a billionaire now or something like that?
Isn't who a billionaire?
What's that?
Isn't Peter Parker like a wealthy business?
He was for a minute. He was for a minute. Okay. Yeah, Dan Slott.
Yeah, he inherited
Doc Ock. Doc Ock. They made him a real rich man, and he had his body.
Yeah,
Dr. Octopus formed a very successful like scientific think tank, it was called Parker Industries. It was basically like Stark Industries or whatever. And then Peter inherited that when he got his body back, and then ran it into the ground. So
poor Peter.
He was not good at it. He was not good at being successful.
Yeah, it's tough. Can't all be Tony Stark, you know.
Matt Bomb, what do we got to talk about this week?
We got all kinds of stuff to talk about.
Bullet points.
Speaking about major Marvel imaginary corporations, Roxxon has a new Thor. And it looks like on one. Okay, I am so excited for this story because it looks super fun. It's Al Ewing.
The story sounds great.
In the pages of Immortal Thor, right? Roxxon's like, you know what? We got our own Thor. And he kind of looks, I don't know, he sort of looks like Hyperion almost to me. Like,
I mean, he looks like a generic, he looks like a corporately designed version of a superhero. Like he's not gorgeous.
He's not unlike actually.
Yeah. And so, so the story, so for those of you that aren't current on the Thor situation or the Roxxon lore, in Jason Aaron's Thor, the Roxxon was taken over by a new CEO, Dario Agger. And at some point in the Jason Aaron run of Thor, it is revealed that Dario Agger is secretly the Minotaur. He's a man bull. He's a were creature. And
he's not man bull,
but
he's the Minotaur. Man bull's a different
not
character.
man bull. Yeah, no, the Minotaur. Two totally different characters.
Easy now.
And also, he's not even the first Minotaur.
No,
he's like there's been other characters named Minotaur. And so he's like evil CEO who also turns into a terrifying rage monster.
Yeah, he's great.
And
he's great.
And it's wonderful. And he's still the CEO of Roxxon. And the storyline that's coming out in Immortal Thor, Roxxon has decided to create their own Thor for nefarious reasons. It's like, we've got the sanitized, focus tested,
right,
mom approved version of Thor.
Blonde haired, blue eyed, ripped up, good looking Thor. Yeah,
gorgeous, got a glowy hammer. He checks off all the boxes. And so there's the storyline, or this there's a one shot coming out in addition to the storyline in the Immortal Thor, where it is called Roxxon Presents Thor #1, which is awesome.
So wait up. I have actually two things about questions. Actually, there's an actual fictional Marvel, right? In the Marvel universe, because that was what I was.
I think that a part of the story is that Roxxon has bought Marvel Comics.
Yeah, it's a hostile takeover
in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, it's a hostile takeover of Marvel, and they're hamming it up in like the solicits and stuff too. Like Al Ewing solicit is like, "Help! I don't want to write this," and it's crossed out, and it's like, "I'm so excited to be doing this," for Roxxon and Thor. It's really cute. Like every single part of this story sounds great. Now, Greg Land's going to draw it.
Just a one shot. Like Ibrahim Mustafa still drawing Thor.
Yeah. Okay. Is that true? Because I thought Greg Land was coming on as the penciler
because the
for
promo has both artists' name on it.
Okay. So
Greg Land is drawing the Roxxon Presents Thor one shot, and in the context of the fictional Marvel comics,
right?
They are putting out a comic called The Roxxon Thor, and they've turned Roxxon into an adjective.
Roxxon.
So it's ROXXIN apostrophe. Like drop the G. The Roxxon Thor. and they're trying to do. I don't know. I don't know what their end game is, but
okay. So now I almost like
it. Sounds like great fun.
I think knowing that, I almost think that's kind of, they're not going for this, but there's kind of a meta fun thing there. It's like, here's your hot Thor comic brought to you by Roxxon, and like your favorite artist, Greg Land, who does the most bland BS, like computer generated bullshit you've ever seen. Like, I don't care about
Frank.
Greg Land.
Didn't you meet Greg Land's family or something?
I don't think I ever did. No, that's not me.
Somebody said, oh no, it was James. It was James Kaplan, who is not here with us today. My buddy James, who is also part of the Discord, he was out somewhere and he met Greg Land, like family members of Greg Land, which is hilarious.
How did he know? Were they like, is it like a I'm Tiger Woods' dad T-shirt type situation, or like,
hold on. Here,
I'm Greg Land's stepbrother. So like, how do you know? You know.
Let me find what he.
The point is, I don't understand Greg Land anymore. I don't get it, and like, I don't think I'm not going to say he's a terrible artist. I will say I don't like his art or style. He's perfectly good at what he does, but I don't understand why anybody likes it. I don't get it. The Wolverine versus Predator stuff that he did was embarrassing. It was so bad. It just meh, absolute meh. It's like if you getting a Taco Bell taco and being, this is the best taco that has ever existed. No, it's programmed to do a thing and be a taco, and that's it. It can't offend. It cannot like impress. It is
programmed to be a taco.
Yeah, like literally.
From Taco Bell is pretty offensive, man. It's a broad statement, but fair enough.
I don't get Greg Land at all. And if I'm wrong, someone tell me I'm wrong.
I think that Al Ewing is actually smart enough to, we've seen how clever he is.
Yeah.
Like, get me the most, like, who's the most generic guy that's available?
Yes.
Like the flashy generic guy that people like, oh, David Finch isn't around. Okay, what about Greg Land? Let's get Greg Land.
Yeah, right.
Like,
we've talked about this before. I think that Greg Land is a performer. He's a jobber, as Matt would say.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's a guy that Marvel can go to, and he'll be able to crank out some 90% traced bullshit.
Yeah.
And people will buy it because there are people out there that like Greg Land. I used to be one of them because we all know that Greg Land used to draw things for real.
Yeah, with his hands.
I had
James. Sorry, Brian.
No, I had I don't know if James's was similar. I had an awkward interaction with Greg Land's wife because he was at a convention and she was there at the table, and he's signing like just recent things, but they had the portfolios of old stuff, and I was like, oh, if there's a cool like late 90s Birds of Prey or Nightwing or something, like one of those things where it was still like it was posed before he like discovered, oh, I could just take a photo and trace it.
Right.
It's still good. And so I'm kind of looking through that, and the wife's like, oh, we have these things. And she's mentioning all these things from recently. And I'm like, I'm looking for kind of the older stuff. And she's like, oh, what kind of things? I was like, I'm deeper in this conversation than I ever wanted to be. I was kind of buzzed by, and she's like, and he's like, oh,
you almost got Dwayne McDuffie, Brian. You almost lied to Greg Land's wife's face.
I know. I was like, no, I was like, oh, well, I gotta go. Okay. And she, they got distracted, but I was like, oh my God, I got sucked into like, I just ignore it. Look online and don't. I got too close a person.
Yeah. So James was there was an original art expo somewhere on the East Coast. He lives in Boston, so I'm sure it was somewhere over there. And he sat down to eat dinner at the convention, and he was at a dinner table with some art dealers and also Greg Land and his wife. Yeah. I didn't say anything about tracing. Like, good call, James. But anyway.
I hope
Marvel hires Greg Land because he performs.
But I hope what Brian is saying is true. I hope Al Ewing is smart enough to know that there are people out there that look at that and just go, whatever. And that is the perfect choice if you were going to have a like corporate takeover or something. You're like, well, who's the best comic book artist? Well, it's definitely this guy. Everybody loves what they've done. It's just like,
like it's like a secret meta commentary on like sanitized corporate.
I hope that's what this is.
Product versus art, right? Kind of thing.
And I hope Greg Land
I
leans into it. I hope Greg Land goes, okay, this is going to be the most traced, computer airbrushed, like, and just like full Greg Land. Like, here it comes, So it's offensive.
You never go full Greg Land.
A stack of magazines said, just trace this. We're good.
Yes.
I want this
totally.
Back to the Roxxon thing real quick. Mosaic fan art in the chat says, didn't Ewing use the Minotaur in his Immortal Hulk run? I think that is true, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
And then Frank posted a map of the Marvel Universe Manhattan from the old Marvel Handbook, and the Marvel offices are on it.
Yeah.
And so Marvel Comics has been a character, or a fictional concept in the Marvel Universe going all the way back to the Lee and Kirby Fantastic Four. Because part of how the Fantastic Four made all their money is that Marvel Comics licensed their rights or whatever and did comics based on their adventures.
Yeah.
And so, like, canonically, Marvel Comics does the only like officially endorsed superhero comic book and then the rest of them are like, well, here's what we think Spider-Man is,
Right.
They actually did a fifth week event in the early 2000s called Marvel's Comics. And it was like, here's a bunch of one-shots that are...
Oh my God, I forgot about this.
Comic books written by the fictional Marvel Comics, who obviously don't know who Peter Parker is. They don't know all the details about the X-Men, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Spider-Man one-shot is like, well, Spider-Man is like a bug-eyed freak and Dr. Octopus has actual tentacles. It's like, here's what these writers dreamed up, for like the X-Men. And it's a fun idea. Most of the comics are bad, but it's a fun idea. Like, I love that idea that Marvel Comics just like, well, fuck, I don't know who knows anything about the X-Men? They show up, they blow stuff up, and they're gone. And so it's a bunch of stories about how the X-Men are just very bad criminal terrorists. It's it's great.
If you live in that
it's a
world,
fun idea. I don't recommend the comics necessarily, but I like the concept.
Well, like, imagine if you lived in that world and like you're like, oh, I'm just doing my thing, going to work in New York, and oh my God, there's a tree house here, and it's huge, and like, what happened?
And this was before the Ed Brubaker. I can't remember that 9/11 reactionary Captain America run that John Cassidy drew. That's terrible.
Oh yeah.
The art's great, but where Steve Rogers reveals his identity to the world and decides he's going to fight Al-Qaeda.
Yeah. Fight terror.
So I can't remember if the
Damon,
Marvel's
what did you say, Damon?
thing came out before or after that.
All I said, I just remember Dr. Doom shedding a tear.
Yes. Yeah.
Dr. Doom shed a tear. Yeah. So there was a Captain America one of these comics, and I can't remember whether or not it was after the point where everybody then knew that Steve Rogers was Captain America, and no, it was also kind of authorized. But it's a fun idea. The comics, the execution's not always great. It's kind of like What If, where it's like, oh, fun.
By the way,
I like this scene for a What If. The comic is terrible.
It's impossible to search this. You cannot Google it.
It's called Marvel's Comics.
Yeah, you can't Google it.
The name of the fifth week event.
I'm trying, and I've tried Marvel's Comics, Marvel's Comics, Fifth Week, and Google's just like, dude, I don't know what you want me to do here.
Wasn't Captain America? Wasn't Steve Rogers, I should say, a comic book artist at some point?
Steve Rogers was an artist for them. He drew the Captain America comic book for Marvel Comics. Right. John Byrne at some point, as you posted in the chat, John Byrne succeeded Kirby as the artist of the Fantastic Four comic. Matt, do Marvel's Comics, put it in quotes. Use your Boolean modifiers.
I tried. It's not doing shit.
I thought you worked on the internet. Did you put it in quotes?
Yes.
Marvel's Comics in quotes.
I'm doing it.
I just want to mention, probably Joe and I are going to be the only ones who are excited about this, but Sal Buscema, I think he just turned 88 this week.
Happy birthday, Sal. One of my faves.
Yeah. Is that amazing?
I found it right away, dude.
Okay, I found it through. Here we go. Okay, I did find this. I didn't think it was the right thing originally. Sorry, my bad. You can find this.
I've got the fandom linked.
Yeah.
Do you still
These are terrible.
I got it right here.
Yeah, the scary Spider-Man with claws and shit. I totally remember this.
Yeah. Oh, man, you beat me to it.
I love the ideas of these.
Yeah, but like Dr. Octopus with the tentacles, like the actual tentacles.
He lives. He prowls. Spider. No, okay. How can you not know what Dr. Octopus looks like if you live in this world? He's attacked New York. High profile.
Artistic license. But Paul Grist wrote that comic. Holy crap!
Wow.
Paul Grist, creator of Jack Staff and Kane.
Oh, pardon me. Well, look at Alex Ross's depiction in Marvels of the characters, where he's on street level and you see these little tiny figures just above your head.
Sure,
that's what the average person
Phil
would
Sheridan's
see, right?
like reaction.
You're not gonna see like what Spider-Man looks like. You're gonna see just this red and blue or red and dark, whatever color it is, figure. Kind of like, have you ever seen a window washer on a high-rise building? Like,
right.
That's up 10 stories.
Of course.
You could barely see them.
Yeah.
Also,
right?
3/4 of the time you're probably running for your life, so I don't think you're really checking out for
That's
details.
true. Yeah. Like when the heroes are there, you go the other way. Like, get out of there. You know?
I think that that X-Men issue of Marvel's where it's like, I saw like a flash of red. And like a flash of a red beam, and the brief like flutter of giant wings. Like that's the sort of thing that the person on the street saw when the X-Men showed up to fight Magneto.
Sure,
or to save that. They were saving that girl from the mob or whatever.
Right, which is
We're
also
so used to looking at
that like bug-eyed girl.
Which is also why Roxxon can show up with their own Thor, because it's like, who says it's not Thor? Prove it,
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
do you know Thor?
Lightning is good.
Yeah, there you go. It's Thor.
Like with the exception of like maybe Wonder Man, it's not like any of the and the Fantastic Four. None of these characters have like gone out and copyrighted their name and likeness. It's like, what are your public figures? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean,
that's why we saw like 1,000 Barack Obama parodies and Sarah Palin, like Barack the Barbarian and shit like that. It's like, yeah, you can't stop them
for sure. But
that's like the Dark Avengers, right? Like, that's that same idea of like, you don't know, people just know the costume vaguely. So look, here's the Avengers. Mm-hmm. We got Wolverine and it's like, oh, I guess they're close. they I guess that's right.
Yeah, Osborn said that out loud. He was like, doesn't matter.
They pass.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You get an armor, you're a hero now. There you go. You know why? Because I said so. Yeah. Go. It's perfect. So we're excited for Roxxon Thor at the end of the day. The other thing we saw that I think sounds pretty cool, Jason Aaron is going to launch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with 4 miniseries. And they are drawn by 4
one-shots.
Pardon me, 4 one-shots.
It's the first 4 issues.
You're right.
Yeah, first 4 issues.
Your artists, Joel Jones is going to be on Raphael Albuquerque, which is confusing, I know, will be on Michelangelo. How they don't get Raphael Albuquerque to draw Raphael. Like, come on. Come on. Like, seriously. Just put Joel in the other book. I'm fine with it. Cliff Chang is going to be on Leonardo, and Chris Burnham is going to draw Donatello. That is a lineup. That is a bad ass
and then after that, Raphael Albuquerque will be the series artist for the actual second arc, starting with issue 5.
That's unbelievable.
So, like... that like IDW heard us talking shit.
Yeah.
Right? It's like they're out there talking shit about us because we've lost all our properties and we're doomed and we don't have anything. And they were like, here it is. Here's our answer. Jason Aaron and 4 of the best comic book artists working today are going to relaunch the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, it's crazy.
That series is easily one of their best, like, out of the entire lineup. I've been reading it since the beginning, quite frankly.
It's great.
And
they renewed their partnership with I'm not actually sure who owns the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It's Nickelodeon.
Nickelodeon, yeah. So they renewed their partnership with Nickelodeon. And so that was the first response. It's like, we still got the Turtles. The Turtles are still very important. They're celebrated. It's a celebrated series here that our creators have put out. And then they came out with this like huge, explosive announcement that's, I think, very exciting.
I think it's super exciting.
And they are continuing the continuity of the current run, which I think is great.
I think it's cool.
Yeah. Mutant Town, the amount of, I mean, it's not quite Krakoa, but it's similar.
Yeah, it's not quite Krakoa.
I kind of don't want that to go away at this stage, considering how much, you know, the new characters they've invested in. Plus, I don't exactly know how they make it go away without, you know, completely like overhauling the timeline, essentially. No. Which is possible, actually, in the way that they've shown, but I don't think they're going to go that route.
I think it's rad that IDW is going for it. I do have to wonder how the other creators of the TMNT book feel about it. You know, like, and so Jim is in here with us, and Jim, if you can't get on, that's fine. If you want to talk about it, I would love to hear it though. But when IDW like lost Transformers, there were a lot of people that were doing a lot of very passionate work on those Transformers books, and people loved it, right? They don't want to lose TMNT, so they're calling their shot and they're going for it. That's great. But like the creators that built this, you know, story into what it is, and now we're just like, thanks, Jason Aaron. Take it away, I guess. You know? Jim, I saw you unmuted. Do you have feelings on this?
I don't massively, to be honest. No, well, I mean, the Transformers thing was a weird one.
Right.
Because at the time I was like, you know, all right, okay, they're going to get some rock stars in, it's going to be great. And they kind of did.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Is it a slap in the face?
Both things make sense.
You know, is it a slap in the face to the creators that brought it this far to 150?
I don't know. Is it?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like,
I mean, 150 issues is a huge achievement.
Definitely.
And they like IDW is proud of it, and Sophie Campbell has been writing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
And drawing beautifully. I mean, she's stepping back, though. It's her choice, isn't it? I think she's decided she's done.
That's what I was saying. I was about to say that. I'm pretty sure that she wanted to end her run at this stage because of how much she.
I mean, to end it at 150, ended on a milestone, and go out on top. Like that's a baller move, and I like. IDW had to do something, and I understand where Matt's coming from, but I think, you know, all things end, right? Like,
sure.
All good things come to an end. They couldn't just like keep this going indefinitely because eventually we would get tired of it.
Sure.
I mean, the fascinating thing would be to know how much money it's actually making, because it's a similarly bizarre thing to the Transformers license where, you know, the films are making, well, I mean, the Turtles films weren't amazing, the recent ones better, but, you know, these are multi-million-dollar franchises, and yet the comics are doing, you know, tiny, I know all comics do tiny numbers,
right?
But, you know, these are small fry books
comparatively,
yeah.
Well, and the other side of that being, so IDW just went through this like, bankruptcy scare, and we're going to lose them, and they were laying all these people off, and they brought in a new CEO who's like, we don't have enough of our own IPs. That's the problem. We don't own this stuff. They're making some money off Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but they don't own the Ninja Turtles. They're paying Nickelodeon for those licenses and stuff. So,
well, I don't think I think IDW, like, and I'm not 100% sure because it's not as publicly discussed as Image, but I think IDW, the way I understand it, just like looking at the sort of content that they publish, I think that IDW doesn't own anything, just like Image doesn't own anything, because all of these books are creator owned. Like IDW might have the rights to like My Little Pony and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and what have you. But, you know, the other things that come out from IDW those are creator owned. It's not like,
well, they still call them their
IDW
IPs,
didn't go out to hire, you know, indie creator X to put out this book, you know.
Well, but still, they what was the Netflix show? I'm drawing a complete blank. The kids with the door, Lock and Key. That is Lock and Key. That's an IDW IP. They farmed that out to Netflix, made money on it, you know, and they're like, we need to do more of that. That is our IP. They can't do that.
But I don't think IDW owns Lock and Key. I think Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez.
Yes, but
own Lock and Key.
I mean, maybe, but IDW owns part of that. They put it out there and they made money on that. And they said,
they gave a piece, sure.
This is a success. We can't do that with the Transformers. We can't do that with you know, TMNT and stuff. And like, I think this is great news. I can't wait to read it. But is this them doubling down on the same thing that got them to where they were a year and a half, 2 years ago, where they were in serious trouble? I don't Like, where's all this new stuff that they were supposed to be doing? Where's all these IPs they're trying to develop? I mean, I get it. You got to rescue this. You can't lose another Transformers. They can't do that. They'll get killed.
I just don't know if IDW is in the business of creating their own content.
They said they wanted to.
That is my point.
That's what their new CEO
I
is.
think IDW is a publishing house.
Well, hold on, Jim. You were there. Tell it. Like, what do you know? Spill.
All I know is that I think they got the worst business model in comics because they build up a brand and then obviously the brand gets to choose where they go. So they can walk to someone who offers a better. It's like if you're the Hasbro exec responsible for licensing the comics out, you're always going to go better. And IDW was turning over decent books and it was doing all right. And then, because I don't know if you guys know that they had the whole universe. It was built up since Dreamwave lost the license in the mid 2000s. It was built. Then there was the whole Lost Light thing. I don't know if you saw that. That was the very sort of modern kids loved it thing. Really blew up, and then that finished. So they shut that down, and that's called IDW1. And that universe, they just shunted that to the side and rebooted the whole thing from scratch.
Yeah,
just fresh start. And the second round, no one liked it. So it was just bombing even within the community. It was just unpopular. So, no wonder that they lost the license.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just, it makes me wonder, and it might be worth, doing a closer examination for some other future discussion, but companies like Vault, companies like Boom, Scout, whatever, I think Marvel and DC are outliers because they're huge corporate entities that actually own libraries full of characters. But everything that's published through Vault is creator owned. Everything.
Yeah.
Barbaric is creator owned. That dude doesn't have to, he's probably under some sort of contract, but that doesn't have to last forever. I think that all of these companies that we're talking about, all of these smaller publishers are all in the same boat.
Well, sure.
We see Mosaic mentioned Stan Sakai, who's he takes Usagi where he wants.
Yeah, he went to IDW for 20 minutes and then he was like, I'm out. Left again.
Yeah. And so we talk about that, IDW was also kind of an outlier in the sense that the majority of their content was licensed content.
Yeah.
From Hasbro or whatever. And so when they started to lose that stuff, it's like Dark Horse when they lost Aliens and then they lost Predator and they lost this and they lost that. They lost Buffy. It's like the books that make you all the money were corporately owned IPs versus creator owned concepts.
Sure.
And that's a different kind of discussion, but I think that in principle it's the same. It's that they don't own anything. They don't publish anything of their own.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. And I mean, I don't know why I do know why the model works so well in Japan. It's because it sells more. But all the manga stuff, those guys own that. That's theirs. Somebody puts it out, but it's theirs. 100%.
And so everything in Shonen Jump is owned by I don't know if that's the right example, but everything in Shonen Jump is owned by the people that create the stuff.
Yeah.
Everything put out by Viz is owned, or Tokyo Pop. That's all owned by the people that created the stuff, not the people that published the stuff. And yeah, so Boom
got bought by Disney?
Mosaic just pointed out. Well, yeah, is it? Well, I know that Disney farms out a lot of all ages type stuff to Boom, so that's why we have Boom Star Wars comics and Boom all ages Avengers comics and whatnot. But
in June 2017, 20th Century Fox purchased a minority stake in Boom. The Walt Disney Company inherited Fox's stake when they bought 20th Century Fox. So there you go. They own part of Boom Studios.
A minority stock, you said.
Yeah, but they do own part of it, which makes sense why they can put out these kids Star Wars comics or put out anything with adventures in the title, which is based on a cartoon, I guess.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And But Boom also does a lot more in the realm of creator-owned content, as far versus licensed content. They do some licensed content, but Boom for a long time had all the John Allison stuff like Giant Days and all the Boom box stuff that we loved, like the Midas. Oh man, I forget the name of that book. That future book where everything's turning to gold that Ryan North wrote that we really loved. The Midas.
That was really good. I can't remember what it was called.
The Midas Flesh. I think it was called the Midas Flesh because they found like King Midas's foot or whatever.
Gross.
And it started to turn everything to gold.
Gross.
But yeah, I think that where IDW got into hot water was that they put all their eggs in the corporate basket and then they started losing things left and right because, like Jim said, the owner decides where the license goes.
Sure.
And
I don't know whether it's relevant, but David, the Transformers editor, or the ex-Transformers editor, he just left IDW for Boom at the start of the year. So,
fair enough.
Whether that's relevant, but he certainly saw the writing on the wall or something. I haven't asked him. I do sort of chat to him occasionally, but he's moved on and left behind. I think he was on the Sonic and Godzilla books, which gives you a good idea of the sort of licenses they're still, churning over.
Yeah, I mean, Sonic comics still sell, man. People love it. I don't get it.
And a lot of the Transformers guys are picking up jobs on both. Jack, who big Transformers artist, he's on Sonic, and Andrew Griffith just did a Godzilla one shot. He was a Transformers artist. A mate of mine who did a cover has just done a Godzilla cover as well. So they're still going out to the same talent base, just for different books.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a whole group of guys that like that's how you're bread and butter. You become like that cleanup person, right? Where they're like, okay, I can come in and I can draw Sonic. I can do that style. I was working on Transformers drawing this style, but that's my thing. Like I can do different styles. It's
much closer to commercial art than the sort of traditional comic thing where you're brought in for your style. You're right. It's just, can you do a decent Sonic?
Yeah.
Do it.
But for some reason, they can't get the Saturday morning cartoon things out. They're like, Saturday morning cartoons, and it doesn't look anything like the classic 80s animation. I don't get it.
But it looks vaguely animated.
Yeah, it looks vaguely animated.
Flat color, like bright flat color.
Yeah.
Kind of like
I read that
thin line.
Saturday morning Dungeons and Dragons thing. I was like, oh man, the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon. This will be fun. And I was like, no, this isn't fun at all. It doesn't even look like it. 1, 2, like, the thing with the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon was there's like these kids that were like taken to a fantasy realm and we happened to call it Dungeons and Dragons. And here's a couple names of some monsters, but there was nothing else. It was nothing else in the RPG realm. And in this comic, they're like, oh, Drizzt from the Legend of Drizzt is here. And they're like, oh, we're talking about this place and this. And I was just like, what?
Yeah. I know that guy. I met him in the water deep.
Don't do that. Because if you take this group of kids and you put them in the Dungeons and Dragons world, you know what happens? They die. And they die quick and they die badly.
Immediately murdered.
You got
and
two
not even
people
by
with offensive
weapons. They are immediately killed and not even by like a named thing.
No.
A named bad guy. It's just like they bumped into the wrong flora or fauna.
Right. And Uni gives away their position and a bunch of like goblins just eat them, or something stupid. Like, Uni, shut up.
Like, oh, no. So speaking of Saturday morning cartoons, this coming Wednesday, Thundercats #1 comes out. No. I'm sorry. The week after, a week from Wednesday, Thundercats #1 comes out, and it's the big high-profile relaunch from Dynamite, written by Declan Shalvey. And I wonder how everybody is feeling. I know that we probably have some Thundercats fans. I am one of them. Like, I loved the Thundercats. Most of the comics are kind of bad.
I can't say.
But Declan Shalvey.
I love Declan Shalvey.
I mean, I don't know.
He's an interesting choice.
Well, the pre-sales are through the roof, aren't they? Isn't it just exploded?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Declan Shalvey is an affordable name. That's who he is. He's a decent writer who's affordable.
I think that's
fair. I don't know if he was hired for this or if he spearheaded it. Like it's just from reading a little bit, it sounds like the whole relaunch was his baby. Like he got it, he made it happen. And I don't know if that's true or not, or if he was just like hired by Dynamite to do a job. But I
mean, they could have said, "Hey, we need an affordable name. What do you want to work on?" And he said, "I'd love to do Thundercats." And they were like, "All right, we'll figure it out." I think
unless Dynamite puts Snarf in a thong on the cover, I'm out.
Yeah, no doubt. I need sexy Snarf that I want to have sex with.
Sexy Snarf.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, knowing Dynamite, they will do that. So get your checkbook out because they're gonna. It's gonna be. There
will be the nude
nude
Snarf variant. Yeah.
Oh, that's the other thing I want to talk about.
Snarf taint.
Red band covers at Marvel. Speaking of covers, I want to talk about red band. First of all, I can't stand it when they do the movie thing where they're like, "We're gonna build comics just like movies." Comics are not movies; they are comics. Stop it. But now we have red band covers featuring super violent shit. You know, like why?
So what it is? Okay, so coming up. Marvel is putting out an event called Blood Hunt.
Yeah.
And it's written by Jed McKay, and it is kind of the culmination of subplots that he did in Moon Knight and that Jason Aaron did in his Avengers run. It's very like Blade-centric. And it's, basically like big vampire action, vampires versus the Marvel Universe, fun. And so Marvel came out with this idea of the red band cover. Are they calling it the red band cover? I don't know.
They're calling but
I mean they're publishing alternate versions
polybagged
of Blood Hunt that are polybagged with this big red explicit content label on them. And the books are going to be the same inside, except they will feature some extra pages of ramped up gory content. And I'm not sure how that's a selling point.
They say so. According to Marvel,
I mean,
go ahead. Sorry, Damon.
Well, I was going to say that haven't we seen they're making it sound like this is groundbreaking? I remember that somebody even posted a Sentry tearing Eris in half. Marvel Zombies. I mean,
Wolverine 41 is like we talked about it. Yeah. Wolverine 41 is probably the goriest mainstream Marvel comic book I've ever read.
Yeah, easily.
And I'm not sure what they think that they're going to do that tops that. And it's just like, so you're going to put out, it's going to have extra pages, which means the comics will be $1 more expensive minimum. I guarantee it.
Oh, it'll be more than that. Yeah, I'll bet it's $2-3 more.
Like if Blood Hunt #1 like cover price is $5.99, these books will be at least $6.99.
I'm gonna say $10. I bet you they're $9.99. I bet you anything.
Yeah, but like so you've added in 5 pages. That's what. Like what's gorier than what we're already getting in some of the books.
And here's the other side of it: it can't be story driven. If the comics are the same. Right? You can have this regular version that's not as gory.
Yeah, the extra pages have to be superfluous.
It has to be completely superfluous gore for the sake of gore.
Maybe we get Blade in a thong.
Yeah, no doubt. Like, there you go. Yeah. Blade's hog keeps falling out of the thong, you know?
Yeah.
Where in the regular one, it stays in, you know?
Oh, man.
But in this one...
Now we'll be talking about Marvel character hogs.
Popping out, you know?
There you go.
But like, it's
great. Will be outdone.
It can't be. They're saying like this is the first time that a different edition of the same Marvel comic book is produced for more mature readers. It's far from the first time that Marvel has released dual versions of the same comic. Yeah, no shit. Beyond the current trend for releasing director's cut editions with the movie bullshit. And additional content for best-selling comics back in the 1990s, Marvel had a brief period where it released regular and deluxe editions of selected titles. I remember that.
That was mostly the X-Men books where they were the deluxe edition books were $1.99 instead of $1.50.
Yeah.
And they were printed on glossy paper instead of the newsprint.
Yeah, but that's all.
Which, you know what, I think that like that sort of thing, like whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
you
great.
make a choice that you want fancier comics.
But it's not like the deluxe
like,
editions had like,
it didn't change anything about the story.
Right. Like, oh crap, Cyclops died in the deluxe edition? Like he didn't die in the regular one, you know?
It's like I remember the first time there was the Gambit ongoing series by Steve Scroce.
I don't like the way you said that at any one of those.
I always pronounced it like Jim Croce, so I always called him Steve Scroce. But anyway, there was that Gambit ongoing series that he did in the very early 2000s or the very late 90s. It was late 90s because it was post Onslaught. Mm-hmm. And they made a reference to the like digital motion comic, which back then was like, you got here's a disc, like an AOL disc that took you to the weird Marvel comic.
It was
like
a CD-ROM,
proto internet, right? Where it's like basically like a Gambit motion comic, like the earliest digital original comics. And they referenced it in a published Gambit comic, and I was like, no, you can't do that shit.
Yeah. You
cannot reference a story point from a comic book that the majority of people will never see.
Well, but at the same time,
and that's like you said, it's like Cyclops got his head cut off in Blood Hunt #1, but you had to buy the Red Band book to get it.
Right.
It's like, so no, that's my question. That will never happen.
That's my question. Ultimately, is where this is all going, and I'm sorry it took so long. Is there money in gore that I don't know about? Like,
so Jim Heavey said, are they cashing in on stuff like The Boys and Invincible, where like people are kind of celebrating them for the gory content? Well, I would say the Walking Dead TV show, kind of the same situation.
Yeah, I don't
know.
I don't get it. I don't get this. And I don't think Wolverine 41 sold more because it was so gory. I think it probably sold more because it's the beginning of the Sabretooth War. And anytime you have Wolverine fight Sabretooth, people are going to buy it, right? But was there anyone out there that went, finally, I have a Marvel comic where I can see Sabretooth eat somebody's guts, you know?
Which we also already had in Ultimatum.
Sure.
Like on panel, the Blob eats the Wasp on panel.
On panel. I just don't get it. If there's money in gore, I don't get it. Is anyone here excited for gory Marvel comics? Is anyone dying for this?
No.
This fall, I don't think.
Right. I just, it seems like this is more ridiculous than foil covers. Like we'd laugh about like, oh, foil enhanced stamped cover, whatever.
Well, will they be speculated? Will they be speculated like
right
gimmick cover? Like it is a gimmick. It's a gimmick, right? Like,
but are these going to sell out and hit eBay?
Or the bullet hole? Like these are all gimmicks from the 90s.
Sure, you know, like.
So I love those foil covers. Leave those alone.
I can't fight them.
Awesome. Come on.
I can't fight them. I'll be the first to admit I can't fight them.
I love a good cover. I love a good cover gimmick. I do.
I just don't.
It's the speculation part that we will all agree was part of the problem.
Yeah,
because it destroyed the comic industry.
It destroyed the comic book industry. Right?
Yes.
So I have an idea about the extra bloody editions, because it could be that when they were getting back the artwork or getting back the coloring, it was like too gross. Things are coming in. They have to they get to the editor, and the editor's like, this isn't going to fly. You got to make an adjustment here. Like,
sure,
do less of this. And they were like, well, it does look cool though.
Yeah.
Why don't we, try to get a little heat on this book? Like it's not, it is a cash grab. It is an attention getter. I mean, you're spending 25 minutes talking about it, but I think it's very possible that it is not story driven, but process driven. Like they get to it in a similar way of like, there's no one, I doubt there's someone at Marvel saying, what we need to do, make them gross. I don't think that's it. But I think if they start getting the work in, and maybe they, it's Blade versus undead monsters that are blood based, right? Like it's going to be a sloppy, ugly, disgusting thing, and it could just be we got the content. You know, I thought it would be gross. It looks pretty good. It's not going to fly for everybody. Could we do something extra? You know, like that's like an editor going to like a higher up and saying like, you know, this could work. What do you think?
So what you're describing is this is the donut holes of the of the comic book industry, where Marvel punched a bunch of holes through their comics to make comic book donuts, and they're like, well, what do we do with all these scrap bits? Let's turn it into a second product.
I knew exactly what you meant. We got there. It's bloody munchkins. Like, what are we going to do with these things? We're gonna figure out what
it's the muffin stumps.
It's the muffin stumps.
Sure. Right.
So it's I thought that Wolverine comic was so gross, and that I don't know that I want to read more, because it's like, I see we're not doing anything. This story made no sense. It's very dumb. The status quo is ridiculous, and we're just treading water. And like,
and Wolverine's completely out of character. Like it's just a bad horror.
They made zero effort to explain what's going on with Sabretooth. And so when you open Wolverine number 41 because you love Wolverine versus Sabretooth stories, and it's like the League of Infinite Sabretooths.
They're just there.
The cross time, it's like the cross time Kangs, but with Sabretooth. Right. Like, what is happening?
But
I love that they didn't even bother to like explain it, to reset it for anybody.
Joe Patrick gave that book a buy it, ladies and gentlemen. Gave that book a buy it.
What? Even if no one here likes it, there's going to be someone out there who likes it.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. Someone think it's cool. Someone thinks it's edgy. How many people still read Spawn? You know, maybe it's the same crowd.
Yeah.
Spawn is 300 something issues.
It just blows my mind.
Editors are out there thinking, how do we get that Spawn money? How do we do it?
What's the next Spawn?
Hey, I hear Jamie Foxx is signed on to play him in the movie, though. It's happening. The Spawn movie, it's happening. Todd McFarlane just like
Jamie Foxx will be 60 years old by the time that movie comes out. But you know what? That's fine, because Spawn will be all CGI. It doesn't matter. All he has to do is play what's Spawn's real name?
Al Simmons.
Something. He only has to play Al Simmons alive for 5 minutes,
right?
And then bye to Jamie Foxx. See you in the voiceover booth.
Yeah. And
if you're wondering how long that's been in production, Jamie Foxx was still relevant when they first brought it up.
Exactly.
That's how long it's been in production.
He's a game show host now.
Yeah.
All right. I got to get out of here. We had stuff going on. Thank you so much for hanging. This is great. We will have a new comics review show this week. Promise. It's all happening. Okay.
I promise.
Okay.
I've already written half of my stuff.
All right.
I'm already ahead of the game.
We'll be back, Gang Hang.
Every other word. I've written every other word.
Hey.
We'll be back to Gang Hang next week. Don't be afraid to grab topics you want to talk about and drop them in the Gang Hang channel. Say, Matt, Joe, I want to talk about this. You guys have been yelling the entire time. Tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll talk about it. Okay? We'll get into it. But for now, Gang Hang. Signing off.
Peace, guys. Adios, muchachos.
See you, cats.
There you guys.